enough to create above-average levels in the human body. And in 2019, a study of skeletons from Roman-era London found that levels were 20 to 40 times higher than in pre-Roman skeletons, which almost certainly would have been enough to start making a noticeable difference to people's health, perhaps even causing serious illness. Added to this, lead pots were often used to contain and cook food, particularly in wealthier households. Poorer people often used copper pots. Lead was sometimes used as a food preservative as well. Powdered lead or lead acetate was used to support various medicines and as a sweetener in wines. 1 teaspoon of this wine had enough lead in it to start doing kidney and liver damage. And some Roman aristocrats may have ingested half a litre to 2 litres of sweet wine every single day. The Romans also made use of lead in cosmetics along with...
You hear that? 2 liters of wine a day. That's what I mean when I say, you know, the past is filled with functional alcoholics, bro. You know, Western civilization was built by functional alcoholics. People used to drink all day, every day.
Rather noxious chemicals, including arsenic, which would have been absorbed through the skin. Add all this to regular ritual exposure to lead in water. Picture is clear. A wealthy Roman elite in Roman city was rich and poor alike, but a much greater number of lead poisoning than their lower class compatriots of the countryside who liked their plumbing and the temptations of sweet wines and perhaps didn't have the money or time to fatten up with makeup. Or lead can enter the human body by eating it or inhaling it. So it can even enter the body through contact with the eyes or by therefore, drinking it, eating food washed in contaminated water, or even washing resulting in tainted water would have been a possible cause of lead poisoning in nature. When lead is absorbed, our bodies don't really know what's in it, so our bodies store it in our bones, blood, brain, kidneys, liver, and lungs. But lead has no real function.
Alright, awesome.
And while
Thanks,
it's stored,
Alright.
it interferes with the abundance of basic cellular, respiratory, and neurological functions. If your dose was one single amount of lead in a large quantity, your body could go numb, it could suffer splitting headaches, an increased heart rate, anxiety, and you could become physically weak while you vomit.
The wine was certainly...
Grab what you
Oh,
can.
yeah, definitely. Yep, same with beer. Beer and wine were the default drinks. Most people did not drink water.
Experience diarrhea and or constipation.
And if they did drink water, they mixed it with wine.
There was weight loss of the liver and kidney damage, urine and blood, and ultimately you could go into shock and die. And there was probably not enough lead in the body to start causing citizens to suddenly drop dead. But exposure to milder amounts over a longer period of time, as the Romans likely were getting, results in sensitivity in the joints and extremities, which the Romans were mistaken for gout, as well as indigestion, trouble sleeping, stupor, slurred speech, blurred vision, and swelling of the brain. The neurological effects could be personality changes, irritability, delirium, depression, apathy, if not seizures, and increased risk of coma. Up to 25 Roman emperors and a large number of Roman consuls, generals, senators, and aristocrats, but whom had adequate biographical descriptions, display physical symptoms or behavioral traits that could be consistent with lead poisoning. This list includes Julius Caesar with his brutal behavior and possibly his propensity towards seizures, though he was epileptic. Caligula with his sudden murderous personality change after a period.
Yeah, he had, what was it called? Shit. Curse of Apollo or something like that. He had epilepsy. His family had a history of it, too.
Illness, and even the Emperor Claudius, with his numerous physical and intellectual maladies, closely fit the profile of lead poisoning. The impact of lead poisoning is even more pronounced in children who absorb up to 5 times more lead into their bodies from exposure site standards to lead poisoning.
Pretty sure it's a... No. People didn't drink water like we drink water. You wouldn't just get a glass of water. You would mix water and wine because the water was stale and tasted like shit. Like, imagine scooping your water out from an open-air well.
Take what you can carry.
Do you really think that water would taste good? No. What people would do is they would take water and mix it with wine. So usually it was 2/3 water, 1/3 wine. And the wine back then was not like wine that we have today. It was more close to like a tar-like substance that you would mix into the actual water.
And also devastating still developing brain. Bear in mind that urban dwelling, but also elite Roman citizens would have been raised in cities from birth. Small amounts of lead in the water and food containers and various wines and medicines, which an adult could withstand, could do long and lasting damage to a Roman child. If lead is stored within a child's bones, brain, liver, or kidneys, it can remain in the body for decades into adulthood. And Roman children...
No, that's not true. Alcohol kills certain bacteria. So, no, that's not true. Alcohol kills certain bacteria. That's why you use isopropyl alcohol to clean wounds. So, certain bacteria would die from it. Not all. It didn't perfectly clean it, but it was better than nothing.
It's grown up being exposed to all of these sources for many centuries in both the Republic and the Empire. Lead poisoning in children has been linked with aggressive behaviors and severe behavioral disorders. It can start as a greater proneness to attention deficit disorders and a lower IQ. It can develop into impulsive and violent behaviors, antisocial withdrawal, cruelty, violence, outbursts of anger, lack of empathy for others, and a fair number of traits typically associated with sociopathy or psychopathy. In the 20th and 21st centuries, numerous studies link lead exposure in childhood to adult criminal violent behavior and a greater likelihood towards substance abuse and an inability to maintain stable relationships. Furthermore, the elimination of lead in paints, manufactured products, petrol, Americans gasoline, and plumbing from the 1970s onward has been linked by some experts as one factor, among many others, to the overall decline.
Still awake? Yeah, I gotta go log into work. I'm kind of running behind. It's already 8:15. So lifetime.
in crime rates in developed nations from the 1990s onwards.
I saw Rome, so I had to click.
But while the connection between childhood lead poisoning and future criminality can be overstated, there are potential causes from congenital mental illness to rates of poverty to abusive or absent parents and trauma and sexual abuse. There is little question that elevated levels of lead exposure in childhood drastically increase the risks of developmental disorders occurring in young people at an extremely formative age. Export this risk to society at large, and you might see a cultural impact at the macro scale. Take an entire generation of Roman elites and city dwellers, dose them with regular amounts of lead poisoning as children, watch their developmental problems blossom into full-blown personality disorders. Then continue to dose them with lead poisoning when they're adults and threaten to raise yet another generation of children who are also exposed to it.
Let's see, Omni-Slash for the 5. Hamaguchi's thanking everyone for the Switch 2 Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's selling out everywhere. Awesome news for Final Fantasy. Yep. I'm telling you, Square Enix and most of these Japanese developers have been just waiting for the day that they can put games on the Switch, because the Switch was such a massive success in Japan that, not having the high enough power to put like modern AAA games on was really detrimental to a lot of Japanese studios, because the PS5 is doing absolute dog shit numbers in Japan overall. So yeah, they've been like very anxiously awaiting a more powerful Switch console. So it's great to see, honestly. But yeah, I think only Amazon has it left in stock for the day one edition.
We need attack support from the marked objective.
5, Earthman Gaming, face reveal, and no thanks. I don't really want to. Why does it matter?
Medic!
Beer kept workers hydrated and calories were burned from fast.
I need a
Today
medic!
people drink toxic piss and eat slop fest. Well, yeah, that's the thing is, back then your diet was pretty much a few pieces of bread a day. Maybe if you were wealthy, you had some meat. And then on top of that, you would have vegetables and fruits and olives.
Here, thank you.
But the average person basically ate grains. Like, you would have porridge, you'd have bread, things like that. You really didn't have much variety in your diet back then. So yeah, the drinking also, provided calories. Only wealthy people generally ate meat. And if you did eat meat as a peasant or whatever, or a pleb, it was usually for special occasions, and that was it. We want to see your beautiful brown face, but I'm shy. I do not want you to see my face. I am a beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed lady from California. Please provide me the 3 numbers on the back of your credit card.
Poisoning. Eventually, you create a multi-generational culture of badly adapted adults, might be more prone to violence, abuse, torture, callousness, and like and impulsive, despotic behaviors.
We gotta get through this video!
In a word,
I need to get
culture
off.
where it is considered an appropriate form of mass entertainment.
I don't want to be on until 5.
And watch them get torn to pieces by lions. Put these same people in charge of the government of one of the mightiest superpowers of the Mediterranean world and run the experiment for nearly 8 centuries. What you might end up with is ancient Rome. Most intriguingly, sustained lifelong lead poisoning would have been a phenomenon of Roman cities and landed states. So it is possible that this neurological damage may have only been done to city dwellers and the Roman elites. If so, the unusual levels of cruelty would have been imposed by the wealthy and so-called civilized members of the empire upon rural subject people and peasant farmers in the countryside, or 65 to 85% of the Roman population who did not have regular exposure to lead pipes and water plumbing. If the small folk of the empire, on average, had more balanced mental health and fewer childhood developmental disorders, then the cruelty visited upon them by
Yeah,
the
he
Romans
does look like Raymond, bro. It's uncanny.
seemed almost as shocking as it would to modern-day observers. And bear in mind, in pre-modern Europe 300 or 500 years ago, where life was in many ways still cheap and public executions were still an entertaining town spectacle, accounts of Roman cruelty and rediscovered Latin literature seem shocking even to them. Combine the possible neurological and psychological damage done by lead poisoning to generations of the empire's elite with religious mythology, laws, and culture that seem to accentuate brutality and cruelty, and it is hardly a surprise that the Romans have the reputation that they do. As with any plausible theory, some of the last
Oh, this is going to be completely wrong.
First proposed by Leonard Cobbett in 1909 and revived by Jerome Nriagu in 1983, in the middle of the US campaign to get lead out of people's homes, some scientists and historical theorists have asserted the mental disorders brought on by lead poisoning may have brought down the Roman Empire itself. This theory
Yeah, that's nothing to do with the unchecked immigration and massive amounts of debt.
has been widely rejected.
and a reliance on foreign mercenaries.
By ancient historians, this is implication based on some fairly spurious connections. As the crux of the theory goes, that the exposure of the Roman elite to lead poisoning resulted in generations of maddened and erratic rulers, more than there would be otherwise, which in turn led to periods of immense instability like the 3rd century crisis, from which the Western Empire arguably never fully recovered. Firstly, given the number of contending theories out there that claim to explain the decline of the Roman West from technological stagnation to population pressures for disease famines to the decoupling of Roman citizenship and military service and the increase of
Yeah, that's the big one. Decoupling Roman citizenship from military service.
genetic incursions driven forth by the Huns really does not pay to pin the
But we're missing unchecked immigration, too.
of the Roman Empire on what cause. A phenomenon known in historical work as modern criminality. Secondly, the end of civil wars, coups, and Roman infighting in the 3rd century, the late 4th century, and the 5th century certainly did the empire no favours. The Jurassic rulers vain contests for power and poor government, often find the cultures that may or may not have problems with chronic lead poisoning. One can find incompetent, maddened, and power-hungry elites.
I forgot what the number was, but I think it's like by the fall of the Roman Empire, it was only like 30% of the population of Rome was actually a Roman citizen.
Every page of history. Thirdly, lead poisoning was a problem for the Romans, but it was already present in Roman society in the 1st and 2nd century AD, when the Roman Empire was at its height, and several hundred years beforehand as Roman power grew across that Rome. In short, if lead poisoning made large numbers of Romans act like psychopaths, then there were many centuries where it worked. The fourth, a large and popular school in ancient history, which has been around for several decades, disputes the idea of a cut and dry fall of the Romans altogether. They say that this oversimplifies a complex series of more gradual transformations that occurred in the 5th and 6th centuries AD. Others maintain that the transformation of former Roman villas into plowshares and the disappearance of many useful technologies from Europe for several hundred years indicates some sort of severe decline, and probably wasn't just a cultural choice within the new Germanic kingdoms. That is an entirely different and massive historical effect. The fifth, a large number of historians point out correctly that the Romans were well aware of the negative health effects of lead exposure, and scholars such as Petrulius counsel people to avoid using lead wherever possible. Other historians contend that while the Romans may have been aware of acute lead poisoning, there isn't actually a reference to chronic lead poisoning in writing until the 7th century AD, long after the last Western Roman Empire was overthrown and Rome's aqueducts had fallen into disrepair. Sixth, and contradictory, ancient historians oppose the theory of maintaining that lead poisoning was not even a problem in ancient Rome. It is in more recent paleopathology in the past decade, skeletons with a high level of lead that hints at at least lead poisoning was a very real risk, if not a chronic problem endemic to Roman cities. Further studies of this sort in the coming years may resolve just how widespread the problem of chronic lead poisoning actually was.
I'm fucking hit!
The decline of
Schizo Garcia with the 2, we are living in the true fall of the Roman Empire. Our version of it, yeah. I mean, you know, Europe and the Catholic Church are the last bastions of the Roman Empire.
I knew you had my back.
We need defensive
For
support
sure.
on the marked objective.
the Roman West in the 5th century was a perfect storm for so many factors that have been building for centuries that it was most likely beyond any Roman emperor, general, or aristocrat's power to reverse it, whether their mind was at the time lead poisoning or not. That theory seems to be, for most historians, the bridge too far. It is more like sensationalist news headlines invoking the popular idea of a mysterious fall of the Roman Empire than a serious solution. However, the more moderate question of whether numerous generations
Yep, Rome is Western civilization.
whose Roman city dwellers and elite suffered from mild lead poisoning, which in turn may have comported their mental stability in childhood, remains open. It is an idea supported by the most recent archaeological findings of the past few years. It is also supported by decades of modern medical examination of the link between lead exposure and developmental disorders in childhood and the likelihood of criminal behaviours in adulthood. Thus, combining these religious, cultural, and political factors in ancient Rome, along with the fact that the ancient Mediterranean world in general is not a very nice place to be, some insignificant metal contained in local plumbing and household crockery may well have contributed to why, for centuries, a large number of Romans behaved like such utter dicks. The debate will rage on for a few more years to come, but if there is any moral to the story, it's this. When you move into a new house, please make sure your plumbing's up to code, especially if it's a young family, especially if for some ungodly reason you want to nickname one of your children Little Boots, or in essence, Poop. Once every 2,000 years with someone like him is, I think, probably enough.
Nah, dude.
I want to go back! I want to go back! I want to go back!
I want to go back.
Hostile forces are still controlling the fight. Bring their hold.
Man. Hearing about the good old days,
We need to stop this around!
the man's mind yearns for the
Let's
Roman
move.
Empire. At least the Western man, you know. Although, I don't know, I think, like, the Asians are pretty infatuated with ancient Rome as well, too. So, I think in every man's heart, they yearn for their version of Rome. What it means to dominate, to conquer, to excel, to truly live. You know, there's something wonderful about that. In this stagnant modernity slop pile that we find ourselves. You know? I don't know, man. I love Ancient Bravo. I'm pretty sure everybody does.
Attention, our troops are attacking Alpha.
Anyway, I do need to hop off. It's already almost 8:30 for me, so it's time for me to enter the rage cage. So, have a wonderful Monday, everybody. Keep warm if you got a bunch of snow, and see you later. Peace out, guys.
Objective Alpha neutralized.
Objective Alpha is under control. We have secured more objectives. We need attack support at the marked objective. Bravo has been lost. Come on! Let's go! Our troops are attacking Charlie. Be advised, hostile troops have secured more objectives.
Charlie has been neutralized. Hostile forces are still controlling the fight. Break their hold.
Let's move! All right, we are targeting objective Bravo. All right, objective Charlie secured. Move to attack the marked objective. We are attempting to capture Delta. We are targeting objective Bravo.
Be advised, our mission is under threat. Refocus and attack. There's a hostile tank operating north of your current position. Objective Delta neutralized.
We now control more objectives. Defend all positions.
You have my back.